All right, so we are here with the fourth tutorial, and as I said, we're going to talk about conditions and events, or events and conditions if you wish. So in order to get to it, you come over here to the mission tab, which also contains the mission settings that we looked at previously, and you will hit this entry here, or you press F11, which will bring you to the same screen. So this is where most of the magic happens. You can put down buildings, you can put down terrain, you can do whatever you want. Your mission is gonna feel very bland and boring if you do not have scripting, you know, like stuff actually happening, maybe text messages, maybe reinforcements, and obviously a win and loss event. You need to win a mission, right? You also should technically be able to lose it, but everybody rage quits before that happens. So usually the lose condition doesn't get fired that often, but you still need to do it because you are a professional. So we need to have a look at everything that's going on here. There are a number of events and conditions that you can use together to get some really nice scripting going on. So the first thing you want to do when you get to the screen is right click and add event. You cannot check any of these before you have an event and a condition already in the list. So in order to add the condition, you also click this button, this plus button, which says create new condition and into the list. You do that and you get a condition. So first of all, let's just look at the events because that's the more interesting part, I believe. So let's start with that. You can change the event type of the currently selected event by coming down here and messing around with this combo box. And this is where you can see all of them. And I guess the best thing to do right now is to just have a very short look at every single one of them and talk about what they actually do. So the reinforcement is the most, is like the first event you're gonna see whenever you add one. And it's a very important one. Now, what this actually does is, if you recall the carrier drops that you were seeing during the campaign, this is how you do it. So you get one of these, you get a reinforcement event, and you set its parameters in order to get a carrier drop. Now what the parameters are, this is obviously the faction that is going to receive the drop. This is the position on the map where the drop is going to be. The deploy action is guard is something like if they once they drop, if it's AI controlled, if the faction is AI controlled, he will not move those units. He will keep them there on guard mode, and that's everything about it. Attack is hunt mode. So if you put this on, they will start hunting as soon as the drop is completed. So be careful. They will not attack as soon as they are spawned. They will only attack when the drop is completed. So that means when the carrier dropped everything that it had, that's when it's gonna happen. Don't so just keep this in mind so that you can get exactly the behavior you are looking for. Retreat is used to make sure that the AI will use these units as in whatever way he considers that it's the best. So if you use retreat, he will not necessarily use them to attack. If he needs more forces in the base to defend, he will just assign them to a defense group. And he might relocate them later on or stuff like that. And stay, well, this is just like they are just gonna stay there. They are not on guard mode, so they will not have that radius in which they engage enemies by themselves. They will just sit there, and if anything comes close to them, they will obviously shoot. So they are AFK. This is AFK mode. Now, in order to add units, you have a selection of all the units here. Just keep in mind, this does also take into account the custom units you are creating in the structures editor, which sounds pretty weird that you're creating units over here, but you can create units as well. That's basically a mod editor for the game. You can create units, structures, weapons, and everything in that tool, but we're not talking about that for now. So again, let's say you wanna add some quads here and like 2 Sardu cars, that's fine. You can do it like this. What I did was I just double clicked the entry. You can also select an entry and click this button, and it's also going to add it, but double clicking is just easier. And it goes the same when you want to get rid of it. So you just select it here and you double click and it's gone. Now, when it comes to the events, you need to make sure that when it comes to conditions, you need to make sure that that the event actually has a condition. Now you cannot double click to get rid of it, so you have to use this button for conditions. Now, if it's empty, as I said, you need to have a condition for things to work properly. This should not be without any condition. So just double click it. Double clicking over here does work. It doesn't work inside here, but you get the point. So now this event will have a condition. You can read what the condition says. It's pretty self-explanatory. When an Atreides construction yard, we can't really read, but you can figure out what it is because you have the parameters over here. So when an Atreides construction yard exists and is owned by the Atreides, then this event fires. That's basically how this works. And you can add multiple events. Let's say I want to add something else, like, I don't know, like a tile revealed. And you can set the coordinates and you can add it here. And then both of these conditions have to be true in order for this event to evaluate and for you to get your drop. Also, always never forget to hit apply changes, or you might really lose a lot of stuff if you don't save. So save often and don't forget to press this button. Make sure you don't. Now, I said I'm gonna look at the event list, but I kind of went off script and I talked about how the general condition and event relationship goes. Hopefully you understand. It should be pretty easy. You get a condition. When this is true, stuff here happens. So this is the reinforcement event. Pretty straightforward. You got the starport delivery, which is very similar. The only difference is you do not have the special actions and the position because it's a starport delivery. This will always deliver the units to the primary building that is of starport type. So that's everything else is the same for this. The allegiance, this is used to change alliances in the game. You can do it dynamically. So let's say you want, like, when this building exists, you want the Atreides to ally the Harkonnen, you can do it by something like this. And you can select all the 3 stances. So you hit apply. Now you need to make sure that you also do it the other way around. So Harkonnen and Atreides are out, because if you don't, this is not a two-way binding. Not for now. It's going to be implemented in the next versions, but in the 2.0 version that we're looking at right now, this is not a thing. So you have to do it yourself. But that's pretty easy to do, because all you have to do is right-click this, you get duplicate event option, you click this. Now you get 2 of them. They are exactly the same. But make sure you have this selected. You just come over here, you have everything already prepared for you. You just interchange them. Harkonnen instead of Atreides, and now Atreides instead of Harkonnen. You still stick with ally and you press apply changes. And there you go. You have a bidirectional working alliance whenever the Atreides construction yard exists on the map. That's how you handle the allegiance event. Now, the next one is leave. Now this is you will not really know what this is unless you try it or unless somebody tells you, because it's the naming is weird. Like, you can't really get anything from this. It's like leave. What does it mean? What it means is basically it's going to destroy every single unit or building on the map for this faction. It's like surrender in multiplayer. If you ever played multiplayer and you hit surrender, then you know everything just explodes. So no traces of you remain on the map. No buildings, no units. This is exactly what this does. So this is one way to just make sure that everything for a specific faction disappears. That's one way to do it. The Berserk, well, this one is also something that you can recall from multiplayer. Do you remember when, let's say, you kill all the production facilities of an AI, like you kill the construction yard, you kill the factories and the barracks, and he just sells everything and rushes at you. So he goes hunt mode with light infantry and whatever he had left. Well, this is that behavior. So whenever this is going to be true for a specific faction, he will just do it. He will sell everything and he will come after whatever is closer to him. So he's gonna go hunt mode for the closest enemy unit or structure. Now make sure this is applied to an AI faction, because it obviously will not work for humans. You have to do this for an AI. Now play sound. This is obviously very explanatory, very self-explanatory. You just play a specific sound. Now don't ask me what each of these sounds are, because I'm not going to tell you. I don't know them by heart. These are probably the advisors, like the Ordos voice sound when you build stuff and stuff like that. This is the vehicle selection. You can somewhat figure out some of them, but I'm assuming you're not going to use this very often. It might be improved in the next versions. I am not sure. It could be a thing. It could be improved. To actually show a nicer name. Let's just put it like that. But I'm not sure. Don't take my word for that. I know he's working on a lot of quality of life features, so this might be one of them. Set build rate. This is again for the AI. Now what this does is, whenever this is true, it's going to set the faction build rate to a specific number. Now what is build rate? If you don't know what this is, you need to go and watch my previous video, which is the AI section, and you will know what this is. Set attack building rate, literally the same thing, but it's happening to the attack building rate variable instead of the other one. Set cache, this is basically it allows you to set a certain cache to a certain faction when a certain condition is met. So you get it. Nothing complicated about that. Same for set tech. Now mission win, obviously very self-explanatory. Same for mission fail. Just get your conditions going and it's gonna trigger a mission win for you when that happens. Now you get a bunch of unsupported events. These will be supported in the next versions. They're already uncovered, I believe. But for now, we're talking about 2.0 again. So in 2.0, we do not have them. So just ignore those. And you get the reveal map. Now, you need to understand this, because there's a little trick about the reveal map that you can pull out. So let's say I want to reveal map. This is one way to do it. Like, you come over here and you do timer equals 1. And that's how you initialize, that's the condition to initialize stuff at the map start. So time equals 1. Don't use 0 because it's going to crash. It has to be 1. That's the first number. So you just double click it, and then you can take this button. This works for reinforcements as well. You click it, and you can click on the map at the exact coordinate where you want this to go. So let's say I want it here, and it's gonna set up the coordinates for you. And you hit apply. Don't forget to hit apply, what I told you at the beginning. Never forget to do this. And now you can see you have this symbol here, which is the map the reveal map. Now the radius is the number of tiles that it's going to reveal. The maximum is 7, at least in 2.0. I'm not sure if this is going to be changed later on, but in 2.0 it is 7. And the lowest is 0. Now you're gonna come and say, well, Feta, this doesn't make any sense. Why would I put 0 here? I'm not gonna see anything, right? It's not going to reveal the map, so this event will be useless. Well, this is not how 0 works in this case, and this is a custom patch that has been done by the community. This is not how it used to work initially, but now what 0 does is it is going to reveal the map for you. So it's basically a map hack. If you put this to 0, it's going to reveal the whole map for you. It is extremely good for debugging your mission because you can see what happens anywhere on the map. There's one issue with this in the current version, with the current exe. If you use this and you get the reveal map, the minimap here will be a bit buggy, and you will not you will see like the dots of the units and the buildings, but you will not see the terrain very well unless you explore. You can easily fix that by saving and reloading the save file for your mission, and then it's gonna work. This is fixed in the in the updated patches for Dune 2000 and in the next version of the editor. So this will be fixed, but for now, this is how you have to handle that. We're gonna talk about stuff like this probably in a separate video, like tips and tricks for the events, just so that you can get everything going. Now, show timer. If you want to add a timer, not from the start of the mission, but let's say from when something happens, you want to add a timer, you can do it like this. And for the hide timer, then you have no parameters for this. It's just going to hide the timer. Now, show message. This is probably something you are going to use a lot, and it's important that you understand how this works. So you come over here. Remember, we talked about this in the previous tutorial. You make sure you enable all of this stuff, and let's say you want to add something like a small text here, like this is a test mission, and then let's say you want to add some more because you like to have a lot of messages. So you got two test messages here. Doesn't mean anything, but it's good for testing. Let's add an event and let's go set show message. So you get to see them right here. This is very helpful because you don't have to go to the mission settings to put them. You can actually do it here. So you can just press this button and you're gonna see them. And what you're gonna be saying, well, what happens when I go after 1, since I only have 2 of them, so it's only 0 and 1. You get this. Now you're gonna say, well, what the hell is this? I didn't type v1.02. Why am I getting this? Notice how this button changes from original text to custom text. Now, this means that if you click this, it's going to load whatever it is at ID 2 for the custom text. And if you press this, it's going to load whatever it is on the ID 2 from the original text.uib file, which is what Dune used for strings before the new patches. But with the new patches, you can have the custom text, which means at any ID you can insert whatever, and it's going to just work. And then you can hit apply changes. Now if we go back here, there you go, there's whatever. Now, one of the reasons I don't like to add my messages here directly, even though it's easier, like let's say you want to duplicate this a million times, you want to add more stuff, like whatever 2, have them in quick succession or something. Let me show you a quick example for this. Let's say 200, you want stuff to happen at 200, you want this whatever to display back then. And then you come over here, you duplicate the conditions because you can do this as well. And then at 400, you're gonna get whatever 2. But the reason why I don't like to add the text here is because you can see the numbering just doesn't work well. It just doesn't happen very well. Now you can, if you do it from the very start over here and you don't touch the first section, it's gonna number them properly. But still, I recommend to just come over here and put them yourself, and then go back, press F11, and you just simply type your text, or select the ID that you want. So Besides this, not much to talk about for the show message. There's the unit spawn, which works. Most of the stuff you might recognize it from the reinforcement event. However, the difference is unit spawn will actually magically teleport the units there. Sort of. It's just gonna spawn them. Like there's no carrier drop, there's no starport drop, there's nothing. It's just they just magically appear there. Now set flag, this is important because if you want any sort of somewhat advanced stuff, you'll need to use the set flag. Not even advanced stuff, like you just need the flags, trust me. You need to understand how they work. It's nothing complicated. If you have any sort of scripting knowledge from anything previously, then they are basically a bunch of booleans. So that should already tell you everything about it, but we're gonna cover it anyway. So let's see how they work. Let's say I want to have let's say I want to have this reinforcement. So when I deploy my MCV, let's say I have an MCV on the map. When I deploy my MCV, I am Atreides. When I deploy it, I just want to get 2 quads. That's it. At a random coordinate, it does not matter. And since I am a human, I don't care about this. It's not going to affect me. So I'll just leave it to guard. Now, if you leave it like this and you deploy your MCV, the game is going to crash. So you're going to say, well, why? Why is this gonna happen? It makes no sense, right? Well, it actually does make sense. The way conditions are evaluated, you need to understand this. They are evaluated every frame. So every single entry over here gets evaluated every frame. So every frame, it's gonna come, take them in order, and check their conditions. And you know, first frame is gonna check if the Atreides construction yard exists, and it's gonna fire up. It's gonna fire up the reinforcement. Then the next frame comes, the game checks again. Is the Atreides construction yard on the map? Yes. Well, it's gonna fire another reinforcement, and it's gonna do this every single frame, which is a problem. Your game is going to crash with the message "too many deliveries." That's what you're gonna see on the screen when it crashes, and that's one of the easiest errors to debug, because you'll know after watching this video. You will always know why that's happening. Whenever you see that, you need to understand that you screwed up the reinforcement or the starport delivery, or perhaps the unit spawn. I'm not sure if it happens for unit spawn as well. I don't think so. But for these two, reinforcement and starport, it definitely does. Now let me explain you why. So again, this gets evaluated every frame. Now because there are a lot of frames in a second, right? This is going to essentially trigger 1 million of them in a very short amount of time. Now there's one thing to know about how those carrier drops work. When you build a refinery and put it down, it's going to give you a harvester for free, but it's going to be delivered with a carrier. Now that's a reinforcement type of thing. It's very similar to this, but it's not a scripted event on your map. It just happens all the time. It's going to drop a harvester with a carrier. This works very similarly, and there's a very specific limit of those special carriers, like carrier drops, that you can have on the map for a specific faction at one time. And I believe that limit is 10, if I remember it correctly. So you can only have 10 drops at a time. You can have more over time, but at one time you can only have 10 drops, 10 carrier drops. And you have to take into account the refineries. If any of your drops happen at time equals 1, like if this reinforcement were to happen at time equals 1 for whatever reason, if let's say you had the Atreides construction yard already built on the map, if this happens at time equals 1, it's going to happen at the same time as the refinery drops. So you have to take that into account. Make sure it's not going to be over 10, or it's going to crash with that message. but you can easily get around this. Now there's one way, very easy way to do it, and this is to click add run once flag. There you go, boom, problem solved. And this is where a set flag really comes into place. So let's read what happened here to understand what we actually did. So as you can see, if building exists, Atreides construction yard, and if number 5, the flag 5, is not set. So what does this mean exactly is, as you can see here, this flag gets set to true when these two conditions are met. So if this is not set, obviously any boolean value, if you don't know this, any boolean value, its default is false. So basically this is false before it is first initialized to true. So that will only happen, this flag is only going to true when this drop gets delivered on the map. This is how this flag works, and it's very, very important to understand because you'll need to use it. Otherwise, a lot of things will crash and you won't know why. Make sure that you understand how to use this. So again, you have this flag. It gets created here automatically when you do this right click or add run once flag. But you might have to do this for other reasons to use flags, and you can create them just like this. They are here, flag. You can do it like that. But again, you get this flag over here. It's initially it is false. You can make sure that this reinforcement event only happens once by setting this flag to true here, and by checking for the flag in the condition of the reinforcement event. So let's read this again. What happens when the Atreides construction yard exists on the map and when the flag is not set. So once this thing fires once, this will be set to true. So in the next frame, when it reaches the reinforcement, it's going to check the conditions again, but this is going to be true. So this is not going to evaluate anymore. So the reinforcement will not happen. This is how the one-time thing works. Now, let me explain real quick what the check marks means, because I haven't, and I just realized this. It comes very naturally to me because I've used it a lot, but for new people, the check mark is definitely not intuitive. So whenever you check a condition, it just negates whatever this is. So in case of the flag, it means that whenever this flag is not set, so when it's false. It's easier to understand what the checkbox means for this, for example. So if it's not checked, it means whenever an Atreides construction yard exists, if I check it, it means the opposite. So whenever an Atreides construction yard does not exist on the map. That's really about it. There is nothing more. That's what the checkbox does. Easy to understand, but it's not intuitive. So just keep that in mind and make sure you don't forget it. You will need it quite a lot of times. Let me give you a very, very specific example when you're going to need this. You want to make sure you win a mission when the Harkonnen are destroyed. Well, tough luck. Okay, well, maybe in this case you don't. Sorry. Let's say you want to win the mission when the Harkonnen construction yard is destroyed. The only way to do it is this. You come over here, mission win. You add this condition and you have to check it so that it's the opposite. It's when it does not exist. That's how we do it. Well, I guess we talked about the flags. This is one of the most complicated things in this part, to be quite honest with you. There's an unused event here, and there's a play music, which allows you to play, well, a music file, I guess. I haven't used it before, but it does work, trust me. You can change the music based on, you know, if you want like some Dune 2 vibes, like you want to have contextual music when you get attacked, you want to change the music or something. I don't know, it's up to you, but that you can use it. That's the point. Now let's look very quickly at the conditions. This is going to be a long video, I am aware, but well, you gotta cope with me. There's no quick way to go with these. You just have to take your time. So we did cover the building exists. You get all the buildings. Again, they are read from the structures editor, so if you add custom buildings, they will be here. That's good. Unit exists. It's literally the same thing. We're gonna try to move faster. Interval. This is important. Interval and timer are very similar, but they have very specific differences. Let's start with timer because it's just easier to understand. We already used it a bunch of times, right? Now, timer equals 1 is a very, very important condition that you will always use. This thing will always be on your map because it's a map initialization condition. So whatever needs to be at the start of the map, it needs to have this condition. The equal means it's only going to trigger at that specific game ticks. Now this value here, 1, is in game ticks, which is basically the timeline of the game. If you come over here, I believe we talked about it in the previous tutorial. It used to be somewhere, yeah. So it even tells you like 25 game ticks is 1 second. That's if you play the game on normal speed. If you play it on the fastest, which I believe everybody on the planet except CM Blast does, then you get it. You have to take that into account. It's not going to be a second. It's going to be much faster. So 25 ticks is going to be almost instantly. But going back to the conditions, again, you can use equals, set this to whatever you want, like 5,000 ticks. You can calculate how much that will mean if you want to, but after a while, you'll just have a natural feeling for this kind of stuff. You can also check if it's greater than or, smaller than. So, but you have to be very careful. Again, always take into consideration how the game evaluates conditions. Remember, it's happening every frame. So let's say I want a reinforcement, whatever, doesn't matter what, when the timer equals to 5,000. Easy to do. Double click on the condition, you got it. You're gonna get a reinforcement. Make sure you do select the position because it's gonna crash if you don't. Now, this is only going to evaluate once because timer will only be equal to 5,000 on one frame. Well, the following frames, it will grow. It's gonna be over 5,000, so this is not going to be true anymore, so the reinforcement will not fire. So you don't need the add run once flag for this. However, if you were to put this to higher than 5,000, then this is going to evaluate through every frame over 5,000, and it's gonna crash the game with the too many deliveries error. Now, you can get around this by just doing this, as I told you. But this is pretty pointless because it means the same as just putting it to equals. So if you want one single reinforcement at a specific time, just do equals. There's no need for more than that. Let me just fix this real quick so you get to see how it should look. That's it. That's all you need for this. You don't need the set flag actually. That's all you need. Now, there's one more that you need to look at, and this is the percentage symbol. Now what this means is you are going to get whatever reinforcement or whatever the event is, you're going to get it every 5,000 ticks. And this is very useful for, let's say, periodical reinforcements or starport deliveries. This is how the mercenaries get their reinforcements in the Ordo's final missions. They have something like this. They have a timer equals whatever percentage, and then they just get stuff. And it's going to happen all the time, every 5,000 ticks, as long as they have a starport, obviously. So that's what the percentage means. It's very important. Talking about the interval, there is a slight difference about the interval. And it's a way to have, let's put it this way, it's probably one of the best ways to have a percentage timer that is not infinite, so that will stop after a certain amount of drops, and that can also have a start delay. So the first box here is the start delay. So let's say I put this to 2000, right? And I put the next one, which is the actual percentage timer, I'll put it to 5000, just like in the previous event. So what this means is when the game starts, it's going to wait 2000 ticks, and it's going to drop, or whatever. It's going to fire the event, whatever the event is. It doesn't matter. After 2000, it's gonna fire it. But then any successive run, it will happen after 5000 ticks, not 2000. 2000 is just for the first run. Now, in our case, with the run count set to 1, this thing will never be used because it's only going to run once. You can put this to 10, and now you're gonna get this interval will fire 10 times. Once it reached the last time, it's not gonna fire anymore. So this is one way to make sure your reinforcements are not permanent, but that they will repeat a bunch of times. Very important and very useful. Let's look at what's else. The casualties, this is really complicated. To be quite honest with you, I have forgotten the exact relation between these. We will talk about this in a future mission, because it's just I just feel it requires some very in-depth explanation to understand it. I don't remember it exactly right now as well. It's not very self-explanatory when you read this. So we are just going to cover it later on. But just to like have a small chat about it, this is what's used by the mercenaries in the last Ordos missions to turn on you. So this condition is used. So actually, let's just go ahead and have a look at that. Oops, let's ignore the light factory. So come events and conditions, and we can easily see the casualties. Where is it? Casualties. So see, again, I can't really explain it now because it's a bit more complicated how these numbers are actually working, but we will talk about it in a future video. You can come here and look at these values if you want, but remember, this is how the casualties work. So whenever they take some damage and they lose some units depending on these proportion and the threshold, it's going to fire. Not much reason to spend much time on this anymore, but trust me, we will talk about it at some point. You will probably not use it, at least not as a beginner, trust me. It's a really advanced condition. Now, base destroyed, this is very self-explanatory. Whenever they lose all their buildings, which is also the MCV, by the way. So if there's an MCV, make sure you take that into account. The MCV does also count. Do not care about unknown. It's you know, it's not used, or at least I haven't seen any difference when I tried it. Same for units destroyed. Tile revealed, this is you can like select a specific tile, and whenever that is revealed, it's going to trigger whatever event there is. And remember, this means that whenever it is revealed by any faction that you have vision from. So if it's your ally that gets to reveal this tile, well, it's gonna fire. It doesn't have to be you, it just has to be revealed for the human player. That's it. Spice harvested, this is obviously whenever this amount of credits is met for the human player. Again, it has no faction. Not in this version, it will have in the future versions of the tool, but not now. And the flag, as I already covered, the flag, very important. Make sure you make sure you do have you do understand how to use the flags. So I guess we can look at the create events really quickly. You get 3 of them, which are very, especially this one, the harvester replacement. If you want to have that, I personally never use it because I feel it's a bit cheap. Like if you lose all your harvesters, you just get a free one. I don't like that, but some people do. And creating that stuff manually is pretty annoying. So that's why you have this. Just hit this, select the faction. Let's say we want this for the Emperor. Click OK, and you get everything done for you. Now you can see there are quite some conditions here. Again, this is not easy to do manually. You have to know what you're doing. That's why it's always just right click, create events, do harvester replacement. It's so much easier. You can do the same for unit spawn, even though this is not so complicated. Let's say for the mercenaries, and you see it added the timer equals 1, which is the map initialization condition. If you already had it, it's not gonna add a new one, so don't worry about that. And all you have to do right now, it even set the deploy action to retreat, which is what you want to use when, as I said, you want the AI to use those units for whatever he considers the best. So all that's left for you is to go to the map, select a coordinate, give him some units, and then hit apply changes. Never forget to hit apply changes. Keep that in mind. And then there's also the site annihilated message. Usually you don't want to use the allocation index that we talked about the allocation index in the previous tutorials. I believe it was number 2. But we don't usually use it. Let's say for mercenaries, there you go. It has done it for you. Now there's one problem with this. It does it very vanilla friendly. So it's going to also add the units destroyed, which is not something that people enjoy in 2021 or 2022 anymore. So really you should usually get rid of this, hit apply, and then come down here and get rid of it as well. So at this point, it's not going to be required to kill their units as well. It's only going to be their buildings. And this should be for this should be happening for mission wins as well, because otherwise, trust me, hunting that very last harvester, while it might seem fun, it definitely isn't. So yeah, just keep this in mind. You can also get the keyboard shortcuts. See, I didn't even remember that these are a thing. You can use them obviously if you want to, but right clicking is not difficult, so you got that. Well, I guess that's really what we can cover in this tutorial. You are going, if you select a certain condition and you hit this check mark here, you're gonna see every event that uses that specific condition. This is pretty useful in some instances when you want to check if a condition is either used. Like if you have 64 events here, like this whole table is filled, it's gonna be pretty hard to see, well, I don't know, is this condition used anywhere? And this is one way to see that. And you can also, I believe you can add notes to some of them. I don't know where that is. It's usually down here. Well, I guess it's not. Well, I don't know. There's usually a text box somewhere around here where you can add notes. I've never used it, but I guess you can put some notes if you want to, like, not forget something when you're scripting. You can have it like a small reminder or a small note there for that specific event. But well, that's about it, I guess, for this tutorial. It's been a long one. I've been talking a lot. Hopefully this is going to help you. As I said, we are going to cover the casualties at some point. It's more complicated. I need to like kind of dedicate some time to explain this. And we're gonna have a video in which I show you how to combine everything that we've learned so far in the first 4 tutorial series to create a small pretty basic mission, but one mission that really works and can get you started to create more complex stuff. So for now, that's it, and we'll see you with more tutorials.